Paul Stanley is opening up about a difficult chapter in Kiss history, reflecting on how miserable he felt during the band's 2000 farewell tour. Though the tour was billed as a celebration of Kiss' legacy, the frontman says the experience was anything but joyful behind the scenes. In a candid recent interview, Stanley described that period as deeply disappointing, filled with tension and lacking the brotherhood that once defined the group. There was no sense of camaraderie or joy, he said. It didn't feel like we were saying goodbye with love. It felt more like we were escaping a bad situation. The farewell tour in 2000 was supposed to mark the end of an era. Kiss had reunited its original lineup: Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss, and Ace Frehley, and fans were excited to see the band in their full classic makeup one last time. But Stanley says what happened off stage was far from what the public saw. According to Stanley, issues with communication, reliability, and trust created a toxic environment among the band members. Tensions had been building for years, and by the time the tour rolled around, things had reached a boiling point. There was a time when we all felt like brothers. We were a gang, we had each other's backs. But by 2000, that was gone, Stanley shared. There was a lot of resentment, a lot of pain, and very little honesty. That tour was a struggle every night, not because of the audience, but because of what was happening backstage. He described how difficult it was to get through each show when the emotional weight was so heavy. Even though the fans were supportive and the concerts were often sold out, Stanley said he felt alone, disconnected from the others. We were sharing a stage, but not a bond, he said. It felt like we were going through the motions. At the heart of the conflict were long-standing personal and professional issues. Paul didn't name specific names during the interview, but it's widely known that Kiss has had a complicated history with its original members. Peter Criss and Ace Frehley have both struggled with substance abuse and creative disagreements in the past, which contributed to multiple lineup changes over the years. While the 2000 tour was intended to be a farewell to fans, Stanley says it ended up being a farewell to the version of the band he once loved. I was relieved when it was over, he admitted. Not because I didn't love performing or love the fans, but because the chemistry was toxic. It wasn't Kiss anymore, it was just four guys trying to survive each other. Stanley emphasized that the tour's failure to capture the spirit of the band wasn't about lack of effort. Everyone was still giving their all on stage, but emotionally, the connection was missing. There's something magical that happens when people on stage genuinely like each other. That magic was gone. Since then, Stanley and Simmons have continued Kiss with other members, and Stanley says the difference has been night and day. This current version of the band has lasted longer than the original lineup ever did, he noted. We're professionals, we get along, and most importantly, we have fun. Reflecting on the farewell tour, Stanley says it taught him an important lesson about relationships and legacy. You can't force something that's broken. You can try to patch it up for the audience's sake, but if there's no heart behind it, the cracks will show. While fans may have fond memories of that 2000 tour, Stanley hopes they understand the truth of what it was like from his perspective. He still cherishes the fans who supported the band during that time, but wishes the internal dynamics had been healthier. There's no point in pretending it was something it wasn't, he said. We owed it to the fans to be honest. And for me, the truth is, that tour was one of the hardest experiences of my life. Today, as Kiss finally wraps up their career for real with their recent farewell concerts, Stanley feels more at peace. He's grateful for the journey, the music, and the fans, but also grateful to have moved past the difficult times that made him feel so isolated back in 2000. It's been a wild ride, he said, and even with all the ups and downs, I wouldn't trade it. But I'm glad that chapter is closed, and that I can remember the good of that pretending that bad didn't happen.